Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. Welcome, Bobcat fans. You're listening to the R&R Catcast. Got your Ryans here. We're going to talk basketball tonight. Bobcat basketball. Season-ending edition basketball. What do you think about that, Ryan?
I think this is going to be an interesting episode for us. Neither of us are really basketball savants. We're both big fans. We wanted to do this, but kind of a little bit of extra mustard on it with Brian Fish's departure. So it's going to be an interesting topic, and it was an interesting season.
For sure. Basketball, definitely not our forte. I know you and I spend quite a bit of time still texting about it and having passing conversations. But it's not. We're not invested in it as football. But I think we have enough to talk about tonight, so we can get to it. But
we've been following the program for 15 years at least, so we have some commentary. Regardless, maybe we don't know all the X's and O's of basketball, but we know basketball. We know enough.
Yeah, from a fan's perspective, of course,
naturally.
But as always, we're gonna get started with what beer we're drinking tonight. I'll start with you, Ryan.
I'm drinking a nice, light, crisp Stella Artois, if that's how you say it. I don't know how you think.
I'm pretty sure you got that.
Yeah, that's how they said it on the commercial with Sex and the City lady when she ordered one, so she seems pretty smart.
In a can?
The Super Bowl commercial. The bottle.
Okay. I don't know if they make it in a can.
I don't think so. It's too classy for that, Ryan.
Is it now? Is it?
They like to think they are.
Well, I got my trusty Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in the can, in a koozie, of course.
Wrap it up.
You know what I do. All right. With that awkward pause right there. Ryan, why don't you just give us like a little bit of a rundown on just kind of like record stuff and some general stats about our season here?
What? Well, honestly, I don't know. Did we finish 16-16? Is that where we finished?
No, we were 15-17 overall.
15-17. Okay, so I mean, there we go. Yet again, sub 500 season. When's the last time Montana State even finished above 500? I know we had a decent conference record, and it's always going to be skewed a little bit because out of conference, usually if you play anybody worth a damn, you're going to lose most of those games. We had a really tough out of conference schedule this year.
Yeah.
So we finished 15-17 overall. I think it was 11-9 conference, right?
Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. Yeah, you asked me to do the records, and I hadn't even looked at them, so I'm just kind of going off memory here. Overall, though, I mean, it was just not a great season, and it was just another disappointing end to Tyler Hall's fantastic career.
Yes, that is a good point. I was looking back.
We'll get into that for sure, but
yeah, I mean, I like looking back through the seasons. We were 500 at 2017. I mean, I'm just look back through Fish's seasons going back to 2014, 2015, and his first season he was 7-23, and that's mainly because he didn't want to go the JC route. So we just had all the young guys playing, and man, we were so bad that year. That was horrible. We were 4-13 in the conference. The next year we jump up. Tyler Hall's sophomore season was arguably his best at 14-16. We go even 16-16 in 2016. We dipped down last year to 13-19, and as stated, 15-17 this year. So, I mean, despite his first year, Brian Fish has been hovering just slightly below that 500 mark for his tenure at Montana State.
Yeah, that first year was a train wreck, but I mean, that's what happens. Like, we lost a lot of talent. Brad Hughes left us with pretty much nothing, and kudos to Fish for not just filling it with JC players and just patching it up. He wanted to build the program the right way, and this would be the fruition of that. And there's a lot of just not a lot of his talented recruits stuck around, and that was kind of his downfall, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's kind of tangentially analogous to how Choate has built his programs from the ground up with young guys, high school players, and that's the way Fish wanted to do it. So, I mean, that first year we were all frustrated, but could see that vision. But we would get these highly recruited guys like an Isaac Bonton, come in and the man he plays over Harold Frey, and then Fish is like, that's not going to happen, man. And I could see Fish kind of running some guys off as well. He's a polarizing coach as far as how you would react to his coaching style. So I could see he was maybe not in every man's player's kind of coach, is what I'm trying to get at. But as alluded in many different ways, if you respond to that, then you would thrive under his coaching technique. And no doubt, one of the things that came across this year to me was just his love for his players. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I never doubted that. But his coaching style definitely has questioned. A lot of people question that type of style. So
no, I mean, you hear it all the time on the message board. People just talking about how they don't think it's appropriate for a Fish to be like berating his players on the court, yelling at his players all the time. And I never witnessed that personally. You and I both out of state now. I haven't been to a men's basketball home game, and I couldn't even tell you, to be honest. But so you don't really see that side of things on TV or hear it on the radio or anything like that. So it's hard for me to comment on that. But that seemed to be a pretty recurring thing that people would bring up about Fish and his coaching style. And it's definitely a polarizing type thing. And kids today might not respond to that as much as they would have 15, 20 years ago. And that could just be Fish coaches a style that is going out of style in today's modern game.
I'm a teacher, and a coach is by far an important teacher in many different ways. And I can't imagine myself berating my students and then them having trust and drive to work for me. And maybe it's different. And it probably is slightly in the sports realm, but I'm not a big fan of that style, and I don't feel like that is the only way to go about having success as a coach. And I know that could be just being passion and intensity on the front line. You're seeing that, and that's just what comes out. And who's to say has Fish evolved over his tenure here at Montana State? Some say he has. Some say he has. This year's played or has been a little bit more dialed back, so to say. But as a teacher, I see I see Fish as a teacher as well, and I don't really like that style.
No, I can't say I like it either, but I'm not a Division I athlete. I'm not being given money. I'm not being given a scholarship to come and play and just do whatever my coach says. So it's a little different perspective for me. I did play, some sports. I definitely never responded to that kind of coaching, but everyone's different. And I think that's part of coaching is figuring out how your guys respond to you and trying to find a balance between all of those different individual characteristics and styles and how people respond to it. And I think, again, that just comes back to him being able to recruit really talented players, but it's like they get there and they realize like, oh, this is how he coaches. Nah. And then they bail on him. So, and the guys that stuck around, I think actually developed. I think his development is actually decent if he can get guys to play for him for 3 or 4 years. And that was a rarity more than it was the norm.
Yeah, for sure. What other factors do you think play into the departure of some of our recruits?
You got to think that there's some culture shock in there. But at the same time, like, I was thinking about that. How come football can pull so many different recruits from so many different areas and seem to have a higher retainment rate? Maybe not. I mean, that you just think about it. It's been a little bit of a turnover here recently under Choate, but I think a lot of that is football has just so many more players. There's just a bigger network of people to fall back on. If you feel like an outcast, there's 10 other guys who feel just like you do that you can relate with. Basketball is such a small roster that if you're coming there and you don't feel like you fit in, like how can you possibly thrive in that situation?
It's a good point. I was thinking about that. You know, just in general terms, Bozeman is isolated geographically. You know, it's kind of far away from any metropolitan area. You have a good 3 hours just to get to other cities. The population is not that big. It's not that great. So there's some factors that are just inherently going to go against Bozeman, no matter how glitz and glam it is. I mean, it is for upper middle class white people a really nice place by all means and accounts. But if you were, let's say, you know, a kid of color coming in from LA or something, there'd be, like you said, some cultural barriers that are, you know, right in front of your face right away. So how do you find your niche in Bozeman? Well, I hope you like your coach. I hope you like your teammates. And if you don't, where are you going to go? Is this school providing you what you want? Do you have the mental fortitude to understand that this is not just about basketball? This is about getting a degree, and that you are at one of the best universities in the United States. And so it's hard to see that when you're 18, I think, or 19. That perspective is often not there until, you know, years pass. But yeah, I could see how it's tough for some kids to transition into Bozeman.
Well, I don't think it was a whole lot better under Brad Hughes, was it? I feel like we had a new roster like every other year.
Yeah,
not just because he recruited 2-year guys. I think just because 1-year guy, it's supposed to be 2 or 3-year guys, ended up bailing after a year as well.
Yeah.
Did you do some research into that?
No, I knew, I'm not going to say his name, but I knew a guy who played for Houston. He said that like during the games were fun. He said it was just kind of a wide open style. I mean, I might be quoting him wrong, but he said Houston was very controlling outside of it, and just like it was just different from practice or just like travel time with your coach. And then when you got into the game, he said you could never quite figure him out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be every coach ever. It's going to have players that say different things about him, but you know, it's just always interesting to hear the player's perspective, especially in basketball where there's so few players playing for him. Each opinion carries a bit more weight just based on the fact that they're a larger percentage of the success of the coach.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
You have something in mind. Take it.
Well, it's just, I mean, if you start thinking about our basketball program, how many years have we been just mediocre? You know, I mean, for Fishy's year or tenure, all 6 or all 5 of those years before that, Hughes too.
Before what was the last year that we won the conference? Was it 2002? Jason Erickson, somewhere about that time.
Ooh, was it? Yeah, maybe. Was that with McDermott as our coach?
Yeah, it would have been Durham for sure. I'm just trying to think about the last time we even won the conference. Time we were legitimate contender. You know, back when you and I were in school early on. Back when Mike Kramer was just getting started as a coach.
Yeah, those were the McDermott era, and we were pretty good there for a while. We had a couple of years when we were going to school in the early 2000s that, I mean, seemingly went well. I remember going to some games. I remember being, what's my fondest memory of Montana State basketball was being in 7th grade in Great Falls at North Middle School. What was that year? Would have been, I'm going to get it wrong, but it would have been late 90s, somewhere there. We went to the tournament, and I was in a home ec class of all classes in one of my electives, and they brought in a TV, and we got to watch the Bobcats play.
Nice.
And I was like, well, sweet, Montana State's in the tournament. That's really awesome, you know.
That's a good little recruiting tool.
Well, yeah. And then, just our time in college, just watching those teams play. You give guys like Casey Durham. Man, you know, you remember Casey and how he had that he always had like the tightest haircut. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. He just had the short little, just gelled up do.
Yeah, you see him walking around on campus, and I was just like, man, the guy I just can't get behind it. He just looked too pretty almost. You know,
I think he owns like, I think he owns like 3 restaurants in Bozeman now, doesn't he? He's got like a little restaurant business empire going.
That I'm not sure, but I wouldn't doubt that. And
yeah, I remember him specifically being just a very pesty type player on defense, like in your face, throwing elbows, but not a whole lot of offensive game.
No. Do you remember Al Bay?
Rest in peace. Pour one out. Oh, man, that was sad. That's a happy memory and a sad memory. Like, what a popular player, what a fun player to watch, even though his offensive game was probably the worst offensive game you've ever seen from a center. Didn't matter. He could block everything out of the gym.
Yeah. Gosh, he was so skinny, and he wore those thick glasses.
Did he wear glasses? I don't remember him wearing glasses.
Oh, I thought he was kind of like the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar look right there with the...
Thought he had the Horace Grant thing going.
Oh, yeah. I might be wrong. I mean, everything's fuzzy now.
I don't remember him having glasses, but maybe he wore them off the court or something, but I certainly don't remember him on the court. But we're going on a tangent here. So regardless, it's been a while since Bobcats were on top of their game and really fun to watch, just because you just knew that, hey, we were going to win this game. We just haven't been legitimate or a contender for a long time, and I don't know if firing Brian Fish is going to help that. It's not in the short term, that's for sure. We're going to be bad next year, and I think we were going to be bad whether Brian Fish was here or not, unfortunately. But we can talk about that later. We can talk. I mean, we're kind of meshing our recap and our Brian Fish discussion into one giant talking about basketball segment, but.
So let's focus in on this. What is going to take for us to get to the next level? What's going to take for us to not be a 500 team, but maybe the top of the conference? You know, something where we're competing with the Weavers, the Montanas, on a consistent basis. Because, boy, we have not. If anything, you know, Brian Fish. I'm going to go down this hole for a moment. Brian Fish is 1-9 versus the Grays. I don't think he ever won a game against Weaver in his 5 years. So, I mean, that's just not going to cut it right there.
No, and it's hard when you're in a conference that's been dominated by 2 programs so often, and even harder when one of those is your rival, your in-state rival. But a big thing that we've lacked for a long time is just any sort of post presence on either side of the floor. You can't have City League Sam Newman leading you in rebounds like you did last year. I love Sam Newman, but he should not be our starting center ever for any reason. He probably shouldn't even be like a starter in a lot of ways, but he's just he definitely maximized his abilities more than anyone on the Bobcats in a long time. So I'm glad he was on the team, but just the fact that he was our best option should be concerning a little bit. And
for sure.
We just can't find a post player to save our life. Like, when's the last time we had a legitimate scoring a guy with some post moves who could score points, get some rebounds, and alter the game? The last guy that comes to mind is David Bunga. There's got to be someone more recent than that, doesn't there?
I forgot about him.
Or no, was it Devaldo Bunga? Is his name Devaldo? Is that what it was? But yeah, he was a good player. Like, he wasn't real big either, though. He wasn't a traditional center size either. Like, all of our best centers we've had are guys that aren't big enough to be centers, but just were pretty good. We had someone more recent than that too, and it's gonna drive me crazy. But just the fact there's no one like just jumps to mind, like, oh, that was an awesome center we had, tells you right there.
No, it's shocking how small we are compared to other Big Sky teams. And just height. But, you know, when you look at our roster, you see a couple guys, you know, 6'11", and I mean, they're not starters. They're not getting a lot of game time play. And we had a guy on our team this year named Usman. I can't butcher his last name. Haruna. He was a senior. Big dude.
Transfer, right?
Yeah, from like South Carolina or something
Yeah,
like
some
that.
decent sized school, and he came in and just didn't have an impact whatsoever. Didn't even hardly play. A few times I saw him play, he didn't look very good at all, and then he got hurt, and that was the end of his career.
Yeah,
He ended injured. He wasn't even healthy at the end of the year.
yeah. There you go. So you think it's going to take a little bit more size to get us over the hump? Some big time recruits right there. So let's just call that big time recruits. Okay,
Yeah.
you're,
Well, I
you're
mean,
going to need to bring in some another Tyler Hall type players. Um,
it's a
so,
guards league. It's always been a guards league, but the teams that are elite always have more than just the guard. And
yeah,
that's we've had good guard play. We have all the way from Marcus Colbert, Rod Singleton wasn't bad. I mean, we've had some guys who could distribute the ball, score some points. We just don't have. We just get killed on the boards. I feel like any time that it comes to anything that matters.
that and defense. To me, I was thinking one of the things we need to really focus in on and prioritize is our defense.
It's always easy to just go so opposite of what you're unhappy with right now. Like that was Fish's MO: score points, play terrible defense, and now like, okay, well, let's play good defense, but now you're probably end up not gonna be able to score any points. But we do got to play better defense than we did this year. It was bad. We go through spurts, we go through games where people will just blow by us, get to the rim at will. It was, and that game against Eastern, we could not stop their center, Peatling or whatever his name was, because we just had nobody who could defend him. Just period. Just 9 times out of 10, that guy's going to win the battle against any Bobcat on the roster.
Yeah, and our guy, I think, who was on him was it Devin Kirby. I think he was in some foul trouble, so that didn't help out.
No. But yeah, so yeah, just retaining recruits, getting some size, playing some defense, just getting guys that are committed to the program. Like I'd rather have guys who aren't the most talented player, but stick around and develop and get better every year than guys who are talented come in and are unhappy and don't play their full potential or just quit.
You know, another big thing I'm thinking about, and this is more of a, university level thing, is Montana State. I'll just be honest with you. They need better facilities all around. The brick, needs, honestly, I don't know. It's okay. It's not great. Our football stadium is pretty good. It's not great. It's not much has been done to our athletic facilities, in my lifetime, really. I mean, besides the big renovation for the football field. And really at this point, if you look around Montana State's campus, it's almost unrecognizable to when we were going to school. I mean, how many multi-million-dollar buildings have been built for academics, and God bless. I mean, that is huge. That is the main purpose of the campus. I mean, that's the goal for the students going there. But
Yeah,
at one point,
look to the west if you want to see what happens when you don't pay attention to that.
well, okay, but on the flip side, they're doing just the opposite of us, and they're just funneling their budget seemingly into facilities and athletics, and it's kind of like what Choate preaches. You're going to do what you emphasize. I just think there needs to be a little bit more equity in how they are trying to do that. I know, with all the master plan, it feels like we've always been talking about this master plan. That needs to be broad. That just doesn't need to be for football. That needs to be, that paintbrush needs to go over the whole campus and affect not only the football team, down to the women's golf team, really. But if you put more money into, I was going to call it Dahlbergering. There's no Brick Breed and Fieldhouse. If you put more money into just facilities, weight rooms, locker room, I think they're doing better on the food side now. I mean, just like when you see pictures of it on Instagram, it just looks like they're trying to carve out a space in a space that's not intended for it. So it's not flashy. If you're a Division I athlete and you were brought into Montana State, you're not being sold on facilities right now. You're not being sold on the amenities that the kids crave these days.
No, I mean, what's the only thing that's happened, as far as I can tell, from when you and I were at school, when we started in school 17, 18, 19 years ago, we've updated the scoreboard. Got like and I guess we got a new video thing, right? Like those
Oh,
two
in the
things.
arena?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the only two things that have happened in the Brick Breeden Field House. As far as I think they may have renovated some of the stands in terms of they actually took seats away to force people to cram down.
Yeah.
That might have happened. The Brick is a cool building, and it needs to be there because it's so multi-purpose, but it's such a cavernous basketball environment.
Yeah.
You can when I went to the games, I loved going to games there because I could just like get a seat like in the little second level there by myself with a seat back and just sit there and just watch basketball in peace like an old man, even though I was like 22. But you could do that, and it's just even when people cheer, it's just not very loud in there just because there's so much space to deaden your voice. So I don't really know what you can do with that facility to ever improve it other than maybe they just need a new facility and just turn that into the indoor practice facility that everyone wants. Make that part of that. Maybe there's some sort of rollout turf you can do on top of the other shit that they do in there.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think the indoor practice facility should be a standalone. But I mean, at some point,
it should. But if we're prioritizing, like a new basketball arena or a new basketball facility would be the quickest way to energize the basketball program.
Yeah. So if you start throwing money at our sports programs, I mean, Choate's been preaching it. I hate to go back to football, but I mean, that's his war cry right now, right? So I think that would be huge for it. So
football is such an anomaly for that because some of the best teams in the Big Sky in the last 10, 15 years have the absolute worst facility.
Yeah. Like Weber.
So it's yeah. Well, I mean, Weber's got a cool stadium. I have no idea what their weight room and all the other stuff is like, but their stadium's kind of cool, but it's not like a bowl. It's not really it's real laid back. It's real spacious. It holds a fair amount of people. But like Southern Utah had a good football team. Their stadium holds nothing, and I think it might even have a track. Like the worst thing in the history of sports is a football field with a track on it. Don't get me started.
Are you sure it's not a football field that has red turf?
Only if it also had it. The red turf, the only thing I can ever nicely say about it is that it's not as bad as it on TV or in person as it is on TV. That's the nicest thing I can say to it.
Well, they do have a track around it. That's such a crappy stadium. Oh my gosh.
And look at them competing for national championships year in, year out.
Oh gosh, I'm so tired of Eastern Washington.
They have their big master plan as well, but as far as I can tell, nothing's ever been accomplished there either, except for some cool looking renderings a few years ago. So same thing, like when it comes to basketball, all of a sudden we need to have the best facility. Like football, you can survive. Does that go back to the fact that it's so much more of a quantity over individual quality, or it's not as much of a me sport as basketball is? Because I don't know. I don't think that the Brick Breeden Fieldhouse is a detriment to us competing for Big Sky Conference Championship.
Okay, so maybe not, but we're in the state of Montana, and the rivals have much better facilities, and so that does matter. And so in a way, you have to play the arms race with degrees. I believe that. The Champion Center that they have is that's a game changer for them. No matter how you try to play that off, I don't think you really can unless you're a kid who's like, a diehard Bobcat. You're always going to be a Bobcat, a legacy Bobcat. Or I don't know. I mean, it's not always X or Y, but I mean that's a nice thing to show some recruits right there, and that could easily win you like a 3-star guy, who's on the fence or whatever you're going after. So I think just because the Grizzlies are in the same state and they're doing what they do with what they do, we kind of have to play that game with them, in order to, if we want to compete at the same level.
I agree and I disagree. I agree 100% for football. I agree much less for basketball because how often are U of M and MSU going for the same basketball recruits head to head. There's so few Division I players anymore coming out of Montana, the state of Montana itself, that like how you keep up with maybe U of M because they're the cream of the conference, but not because they're your in-state rival.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like you're recruiting a kid from Utah, like you think he's going to care that Missoula is slightly better than Bozeman in terms of facilities? Unless you're being recruited by both schools, you're not going to care. You think Tyler Hall cared a shit about what was going on in Missoula when he was being recruited by Fish?
No, but it could be a factor. It could be a factor. So that's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I get you. I think it matters less for basketball, in my opinion, just because there's so few actual Division I talented players, or even any players at all, that the Grizz and the Cats are going to be going head for head for again.
Okay.
But
that's really all I have to say about that. So
I just agree that more emphasis, the athletic department just needs to care about basketball. They need to prioritize it and just care about making a winning program again, instead of just having it be a program that finishes 500 every year.
Yeah. Well, I think Leon Castell comes from that background. Everything points towards that direction. So we'll see what he can, how he can navigate the ship when he's choosing the next head coach for the Montana State Bobcats.
Question for you. We've been talking about this. Do you think it was the right move to fire Brian Fish?
Yeah, I do. I mean, so here's why I think 1-9 versus the Grizz in 5 seasons. Okay. 1-4 in postseason. Under 500 career. In conference and in overall. Now, overall, like you said, slightly skewed because we played teams like Kentucky one year and Indiana this year, stuff like that. But when I'm assessing this, and I was thinking about this on a run the other day, I think this was about as good as we were going to get. I think Brian would have done. I think actually would have done fine. I think maybe even better next year. I love Tyler Hall. And I want to talk a little bit about his influence on the team and how just the kind of person he is. But I think someone said on the board, and I was kind of agreeing with this because it was aligning with my thought was, let's see, Tyler's going to be gone next year. Well, does that free up some other team motivated people rather than, maybe we're just going to funnel it through Tyler? I mean, Tyler's just spectacular, but sometimes Tyler disappears too. And so I think, I would be interested in seeing how Fish would navigate that. And I'm not certain that we would be worse than we be this year. I mean, we got Harold Frey being a senior next year. He's, arguably the best point guard in the Big Sky this year. So I thought it would have made way more sense to fire him last year. And I think that was a head scratcher. And then this year we showed some improvement. We had momentum in the month of March. But then again, we go and we barely beat the last team in the conference when it comes to the postseason. It just always seemed like with Fish, it was never surprisingly good. It was always predictably or kind of bad. I mean, the one surprising game we had was when he beat the Grizz, and it was like we beat them 78 or to 69, something like that. It was a good game, but one of those games in 5 years, maybe there's 2 other games in there that I could chalk up as holy cow, we won and not in a surprising fashion. We dominated it. It's too little in my book. It's time to move on.
I think it was ultimately the right decision. To your point about doing it last year, I mean, it'd be hard to fire him when he brought in one of the greatest players to ever play in the Big Sky Conference, let alone in Montana State. until he was a senior. I don't know if that played a factor into it, but I know that this was his contract year, so I guess they're just writing it out through his contract and just not renewing it. So I can see why they didn't do it last year. It makes sense now. Like, hey, this is, like you said, maybe this is peak Fish. This is as good as it gets under Fish, and if as good as it gets means eking out a first round win, which we shouldn't even have been playing in the first place because we should have had a bye because we should have won one of those last two games. That's what it took to fire him, and I guess I agree on the whole. I just don't know if a coaching change is going to help. I just don't really think he could stick around after the career he's had, and taking one of the best players to ever play in the conference and turning that into one conference win over a 5-26 team.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. We beat Idaho, who was atrocious this year. We beat them 3 times this year. I mean, not difficult to beat Idaho this year. And that was the best it could get. What would we win that game by 2? Like it was way closer than it should have been. And we did hang with Eastern. We finally came out and played loose. Like you could tell in Idaho that the guys were playing tight because they know they hadn't won a game. Maybe it was the pressure was getting to them a little bit, but they came out and played against Eastern, a whole different mentality, and almost won the game. I still can't believe that Tyler Hall got a decent look to win that game and airballed it. That's just, But roundabout point, then yeah, I think it was time for Fish to move on. I don't know if just a coaching change is going to be enough to ever. The next guy's just going to go 500 for his career too until he gets fired, right? Like that's your career. That's your path at Montana State.
Well, if 2 guys sitting here on a Thursday night can point that out, I'm pretty sure Leon Costello could point that out too. So
no,
I'm going to take heart in. There's probably more changes coming to just athletics in general that you and I are not privy to. So
I also think the right coach can overcome any sort of facility or anything shortcoming, or the right coach could kickstart the fundraising to get that done. Like it's going to take a special coach, which they don't just grow on trees, but it can be done. And maybe Leon can get a guy in here who can do that kind of stuff. Like I have hope. I have hope that who Leon picks is going to like that was one of South Dakota State enjoyed good success while he was there, and I don't know how much that is attributed to him or not. But I know it happened while he was there, and I know he would love to see it happen at Montana State.
Absolutely. Well, that's pretty much all I had about Montana State basketball this year. I don't know what else we might talk about, unless you wanted to kind of talk about the departure of Tyler Hall.
Yeah, you wanted to talk a little bit about Tyler Hall. You had some stuff that it seemed like you wanted to mention.
I want to phrase this because I never want to. I want to be respectful to our players and thank them, but I don't feel. I kind of wanted your thoughts on Tyler. Is like, did you see him as a great team player?
One thing I noticed about Tyler Hall is I never thought he had very good body language.
That's so important.
It seemed kind of mopey at times.
Yeah, it was it's well cataloged through like Coulter's interviews and his analysis that he's obviously an introverted young man. So I don't think he wanted. I mean, that's just his natural, his mode of operation, so to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure he enjoyed being the guy that had to win games for us. I think he would have been a great player with another like Michael O'Guinee and Ahmad Rory. Like if he had someone to counter him in that way. Like Frey kind of turned into that sometimes, but Frey's a point. We just need like another scorer, like another guy who could just take the pressure off of him. And I don't know if he enjoyed just being the guy, like the man. Not everyone is, built for that.
No, they're not. No, not every person can step into leadership.
No, I
So
mean he could be like a dominant like sixth man type guy. Maybe he's not even a starter. Maybe he's the first guy off the bench and just comes in and just lights it up. Like I don't know, but and I'm definitely like he was the best player I've seen play at MSU, but not the best complete player.
yeah, I guess that's kind of what my thoughts were as well, and that's just basically all I really wanted to
Yeah.
kind of bring to light there. So, so you and I are in concert in that. Okay, cool.
I definitely thought he had his best year this year of his career. His scoring wasn't on top of as its best as it's been, but I think he had the most rebounds, the most steals, the most assists that he's had in his career. He definitely turned into like the best all around version of him I've seen in his career, and it was a lot of fun to watch for sure.
Nice. Well, that's all I have, Thorny.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. It was another bleh season, and it led to the firing of our bleh coach. Another 500 coach out the door.
Yeah, all counts a really good guy. Just couldn't get it done.
You got to feel for the way that this year went for him personally.
Oh my God.
How tough is that? Just everything that happened and it ends like this. You can't take that into account when you make a business decision, but that's just sucked.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's unspeakable, really. And
I can't even imagine.
No, I mean, you and I are both fathers, and so that's the road you never want to go down. Yeah, so I mean, our thoughts are with the Fish family. I mean, we sit here and critique the man, and this is his livelihood.
Yeah,
so yeah, our just thoughts are with him through his daughter's death and through this firing too. I mean, this is not an easy time for him. So hope he lands on his feet. Yeah.
I mean, wish nothing for the best for the guy. Definitely had no ill will towards him. Just needed some new life yet again in a program that just needs something.
Yeah. So we'll kickstart next year. New coach, maybe some new plans with some athletic funding. Who knows? So we'll hope for the best.
We'll hope for the best. I don't have much hope on that, but I do hope for. I just hope we kind of bring in someone that maybe has some clout, a reputation, like not just a up and comer guy, like someone who's maybe established, maybe who's on, I don't know, maybe more on the twilight side of his career, but has a big name. I don't know, something like that would bring some energy in the program or not. I don't know.
See, I kind of I would go just the opposite of that. I like the up and comers, the Rockets, who are just like fully driven, just want to be the best, fully like committed to the mission, just go getters. That's the kind of guy I want.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the guy you need if you're gonna rocket yourself to what was the guy who was it like VMU that led them to like back-to-back final eights or whatever, and I was like coaching in the NBA or whatever, or that guy that was coaching where the hell did
Are you talking about the coach now for Texas?
I don't know. Maybe that's where he's at now, but it was the guy who started at VMU. He's like a bald guy, young guy.
Yep.
And then the other guy was the guy who coached Gordon. What's his face?
Hayward.
Yeah. Who was on the team? Was he Butler? Is that where he played?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like coaching the Celtics now, or was coaching the Celtics. Like that young coach. He was like Brad Stevens. He was like 30 something.
Yeah, he's still 32. Coaching them.
Yeah, so that's another example of taking a flyer on a young guy who's just an up and comer, and boom, just now he's coaching the NBA. So I mean, that's what it takes. But you also fizzle more often than you get lightning in a bottle with those guys.
True.
A guy who's like in over his head, and there you go. That's the end of that career.
Quickly, I'll just interject right here too. I think it'd be wise to hire Bobcat. And the reason being,
Danny Sprinkle.
Yeah, there's that name. I just some guy who bleeds blue and gold. that has that passion, has that love. I mean, has that same love you and I do. I mean, this is the reason why we're doing this silly podcast, is because we love Montana State. We need someone who loves Montana State. So I'm not saying Brian Fish didn't, but some person who's been here, has a history. I think that would do well.
I wouldn't mind seeing a guy who has coaching experience in a similar, not necessarily culture like Bozeman, but just in a similar situation where maybe you're the only thing going for a few hundred square miles in all directions.
Yeah, that would help out too.
It's just used to recruiting to that kind of thing, or maybe someone from like a Midwest school, maybe the Missouri, whatever the hell the equivalent for the Missouri Football Conference is. I don't think that they also play basketball, do they? Or do they? I think maybe it's the Summit League. I don't know my basketball conference very well. But wherever like Northern Iowa and all those other schools play, like someone maybe more of a Midwest feel, maybe some Midwest ball, maybe turn us into like a Wisconsin light type team. Might do us some good.
Yeah. All right.
So,
well, there's our basketball episode right there.
Yeah. Hope everyone didn't hate that too much.
Thorny, where can you find our podcast?
You can find us anywhere that podcasts are found, mainly iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. You can find us there. You can find us on Twitter at RRCatcast. There's no N or anything. RRCatcast. That's our Twitter handle. And that's about it. Those are the two places that we can be found, and you can interact with us. We'd love to hear some feedback.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks. Go Cats.
Go Cats.